Hi, and welcome to the third of these BUTs of the Bible, Butts of the Bible. The great but that we turn to today is found at the end of the book of Genesis, chapter 50 and verse 20. We break into the story of Joseph, the boy rejected by his brothers, sold into slavery, faithful to God through the experience of prison. He rises to become prime minister of all of Egypt. His wise leadership saves the nation during a time of great famine. His brothers come to Egypt looking for food, and there they and later their father find salvation from starvation through Joseph's leadership and kindness to them. But the brothers fear the retribution of Joseph once Jacob has died. And so they come and they seek forgiveness from him. And there in chapter 50 and verse 20, we read Joseph's great, compassionate and gracious reply to those brothers' fears. You intended it for harm, he says, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is being done and saving many lives. Two things I want us to note from that verse, but God intended it for good. Firstly, despite what we experience now, God is in control, and God will bring about good and will bring about his salvation. We've seen, haven't we, during this time of national crisis, a rise in goodness in our society. Examples of how people are helping and caring for one another in a way that perhaps they haven't before. And what we've seen on a small scale in our experience over these last weeks, God is able to do on such a bigger scale, on a universal spiritual level, to go beyond what we are able to do and to bring about a salvation that we cannot bring about for ourselves. If we look to serve God faithfully in the way that Joseph did, we too can be those who bring about good in our time and see God working out his purposes in and through us. Secondly, I want us to think about Joseph's response. Joseph's response could have been one of reflecting upon the hardship that he'd suffered and the injustice at the hands of his brothers. But rather he shows a Christ-like quality of grace and of compassion. He sees beyond his own situation to see that his work is part of what God is doing to bring about good and salvation. Nelson Mandela, who himself in his own life suffered great injustice in apartheid South Africa, said, "Resentment is like drinking poison and hoping it will kill your enemies." If we serve God faithfully, choosing not to see our own circumstances and taking those wrong attitudes to our hearts and minds and responding through them, we can open the door to the goodness of God and see a blessing upon ourselves, but also a great blessing upon others. As I'm recording this, it's Easter week, and we see the full forces of the evil one trying to thwart God's plan of salvation for us. But Jesus rises above that, conquers death and sin for us, and Easter is for us a time of victory in and through Jesus. So we don't celebrate Easter Friday, but we celebrate Good Friday, because in Jesus and his salvation, good is being worked out and the purposes of God are coming to pass. So in these challenging times that we face, and the circumstances we experience. Hold on to that good that we can bring. Hold on to that salvation that God offers to many. Let's be those who, over this Easter time, are faithful in our prayers for those on the front line in the NHS, for those in leadership, that they would know wisdom. Pray for our Prime Minister Boris Johnson in his illness. But pray as well that the hope of Easter, the goodness of God and his salvation, breaks out into the hearts of many. And it would be great to be part of that this Easter, to be part of God's purpose about bringing goodness and salvation into these troubled times. The Lord bless you over this Easter time. Amen.